This is the first of the 8th, 2025. That means only one thing. There are very many F1 centric threads at which we need to pull, of course, as always. What else would you expect? Outlaw, Michael, Jamie, Safak. It's techier than techie things out here. Issa, F1 boy, techier than techie things, I tell you. We will talk about OJ Piastri and Lando Norris. It was a matter of when and not if these two came to blows, came to a head. That niceness, Phil, over at the papaya coloured team ceased to exist. How can we be friends if we both want the same things? If we've been training all our life to get ourselves a driver championship? How can we be friends while you've seen their relationship, the start of it starting to come off at the seams here, in my humble opinion? I don't think they'll be friends for much longer, chat. There you go, I've said it. Take that one to the bank and we'll revisit in 12 months or less. We'll talk about Oscar Piastri and Lando. We'll talk about what happened in FP2. We'll talk about Maximilian Verstappen and Tsunoda-san and Tailgate et al. So too, we'll talk about what McLaren team principal Andrea Stella said about Lando and Oscar Piastri. Lest we forget, for the past 12 months, that's been all the rage, right? When are they going to come to blows? How can you manage Oscar and Lando? Well, they've been lucky. Have McLaren, Zach Brown, Andrea Stella, because they're 260 something points clear in the constructors, rendering therefore all of the papaya rules null and void. They can race each other, they can take each other off. No harm, no foul, apart from the PR nightmare that a crash would come with, and it very nearly happened. Let me tell you what Andrea Stella said in the first instance. Again, courtesy of Jake Boxall Leg over at autosport.com. For the avoidance of doubt, all journos are created equal, but some are created more equal than others. This is Autosport, and this is Jake Boxall Leg, GOAT id settings. Here's what he says, recorded by dint of Andrea Stella, that their relationship keeps on improving. Really, Andrea Stella? Really? Colour me naive. I think it's going to start to kick off. Lest we forget, only a couple of races ago they came together on track. Lest we forget, very nearly techier than techie things at Spa-Francorchamps last week. A couple millimetres either way, and there could have been a big accident going into Radion. This, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, is a matter of when and not if they come together again and it becomes fractured and fissured. Don't believe me? Well, this happened in FP2. Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris very nearly came together. Here's what happened, chat. Let me show you. Ignore. Don't listen to me. Ignore what I'm saying. You be the judge. Always do your own research and due diligence. You tell me what you think is going on here. We're on board with Lando Norris 1.0. And Oscar Piastri is going around his outside. I can't show you it properly, but like we've got to go frame by frame here, lest I want to get in trouble with Liberty Media. Here's what's going on. You can see Oscar Piastri coming around the outside. He's not there, and then he's there. And what does Lando do? Outbrakes himself as per usual. Mention no names. Lando Norris 1.0, aka Dustin from Stranger Things. And then what happens? It gets techie. Then they need to come together in free practice. So what do you think he's going to look like in qualifying and all the race? And then what do you think Lando Norris does? As if we're all playing nicely. Let me show you this. This is important. Do you see Lando's hand? Fangolo. What are you doing, sir? OJP. What are you doing? There's no need for that, Lando's saying. Again, upset. That looks like, I think this is the end of their relationship. Not as friends necessarily, or not as enemies either, but slowly but surely the sliding rule is going to do one of these. Again, I say to you this, the oldest truism in F1 history goes something like this. We cannot be friends if we both want the same thing. False seeming, yeah, of course. We'll play nicely in front of the press and media. Yeah, it will look like that. We'll do the sponsorship engagements together. You see Oscar Piastri tomorrow playing with remote control cars on Martin Brundle. Yeah, false seeming on the surface, it will look good. It will look like we are cordial, just as it did between Nico Rosberg and Sir Lewis Hamilton in 14 and 15 before 16 happened. I would argue that for Lando and Oscar, that this is about to start building up to being the equivalent of Mercedes, the silver war between Nico and Lewis in 2016. Why? Well, because F1 history doesn't rhyme, but sometimes it does. repeat. Easy G, I understand, mate. But by dint of Lando's cheeky outbreak instance, they very nearly came together, didn't they? Techier than techie things. I think you could see Lando. Lando desperately wanted to do the nice guy thing and hold it in. But by virtue of the fact that they very nearly came together, you get one of these from Lando and Norris. I think Andrea Stella's doing one of these, mate. Failing, disbelieving the evidence of his own eyes and ears. For the avoidance of doubt, it's a matter of when and not if. Nobody is that nice. Agreed with you, Issa. Oscar is absolutely and will always be Lando Norris's worst nightmare into turn one, and he will be in second, if not on pole. So how does Lando Norris fix for his multitudinous errors of the unforced variety over the course of the first lap and consolidate for a cheeky P1? If indeed, per the odds makers, he manages to put it on P1, it's going to get I'm telling you. It is going to get so tricky, and I'm here for it. I would argue that this is what F1 needs, that it has to be 1989. It cannot be 1988 between Senna and Alain Prost if Liberty Media want to continue growing the rate at which F1 accrues attention dollars globally. Oh, and by the way, it's not just them. It's Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda said this a couple of days ago. Let's see if we can get the same car, me and Max, before you compare me to him, insinuating that he's not going getting the same materials. We know already last Grand Prix, Tsunoda-san was a bit late to the party as far as the upgrades, that they kept spare the upgrades for Max Verstappen's car before Lauren Mecchi said, no, let's put them on Tsunoda's car. Let's make this fair going forward. That we've got the upgrade, we brought it for him. Now, conspiracy theorists will say, well, this is proof positive that they've always been giving the Maximilian Verstappen the car, that there is such a thing as Verstappen privilege. However, that was later dispelled by Dan Fallows in the first instance, that they've never built a car in Maximilian Verstappen's image. Do they listen to Max Verstappen's feedback more than the other slower, ostensibly slower drivers? Yes. Will that manifest in an oversteery dynamic of a car? Absolutely. But is their intent to build Max Verstappen machine? Absolutely not. However, Tsunoda-san, in saying this, is giving credence to some of the conspiracy theories. Is that Yuki Tsunoda, chat? Or is that Checo Perez? I cannot tell. They look and sound the same when Tsunoda's dropping one of those. And I think that's techier than techie things. Seeking, therefore, to undermine not only the Red Bull circumstance, but the Maximilian Verstappen circumstance. This was the worry, wasn't it? As far as Dr. Helmut Marko and Christian Horner saying once upon a time that Tsunoda-san is not level-headed enough, that he's too rogue an entrant for the Bulls that are red, particularly in a season in 2025 when they don't have the car or materials with which to fight a raging bull in the McLaren MCL39. This is what Maximilian Verstappen said. Because it's techie, understeer settings, snap oversteer. The car lacks for pace. In addition to balance, they are nowhere. There is no there's nothing edifying about this RB21, nor is there any redeeming feature. Max Verstappen's words, not mine. It was a very tough day in FP2. He says, we had no grip and no balance in the car, neither one. Normally, it's one of the two, right? Normally, you dial up the balance and lose a bit of pace, or vice versa. This time, RB21, per Maximilian Verstappen, has not pace nor balance. Nothing really worked, Maximilian Verstappen said. We'll have to investigate where it's coming from, because I think we can definitely do better. But today was pretty bad. Now, the Max naysayers will say, the Red Bull naysayers will say, well, you've got a rocket ship. You do this every single race, or have done a multitude of times season today. And then all of a sudden you'll rock up in FP3 and have yourself a rocket ship. And Max will be vying for P1, P2 or P3 alongside one modern day Jean Alesi. However, I would contend, again, like James Allen, if you want to see the true value, or Tom Clarkson even, if you want to see the true speed of a car, you want to check not the first driver, but the second. Understand what Tsunoda-san was doing. And in this instance, ladies and gentlemen, the jury, during FP2, mind its only due diligence of the aerodynamic and mechanical variety. In this instance, Yuki Tsunoda was 3/10 up the road from Maximilian Verstappen. Oh, the humanity. What are we doing here, chat? This is nonsense. I can't read Red Bull. Some are saying that Maximilian Verstappen has made the worst decision in the world by promising to stay at Red Bull, being loyal for an additional 12 months, that could be an additional year of his career wasted away because it doesn't look like anytime soon. The one that they caught Enrico Balbo and Pierre Vacher, both of whom were meant to operate in a way that was autonomous and independent from Adrian Newey, haven't built themselves a car. And it doesn't look like they're going to build one anytime soon, particularly as Ford Powertrains is coming online in 2026. And Mercedes, as far as the PU advantage is concerned, have the whip hand, and it gets techier. Chat, as if it needed to get any more techie than this. Maximilian Verstappen, they left the bloody towel in the car. What are we doing, chat? How? Jonathan Wheatley leaves this team and they can't do anything. The pit stops routinely 2 seconds flat last year when Jonathan Wheatley, sporting director, was at the helm. Now, this season, they can't even operate an automated red light. Even this time, Maximilian finds himself in the car with a towel in there. What? What are we even doing? The levels of ineptitude here are unprecedented. How does Max find himself with a towel in the car? Who left it there? What, you think Max is going to go and be able to do proper due diligence, do your own research with additional weight in the car? The car's already a dog, an SH1T box, and you want to put additional weight. What are we doing? Max Verstappen throws it out. Now, should Max throw it out onto the side of the track? Probably not. Was it off the racing line? Probably. Will he get a reprimand and a talking to from the stewards? Don't do that again. Probably. Should Maximilian Verstappen have come into the pits and dropped off the towel? Probably. Does he have the time, though, since that car is so much of a dog? Probably not. And this is where it gets techier than techie things, Jack. I don't know the answer to these questions. I don't know the solve. Maximilian Verstappen, though, is clearly frustrated, growing more frustrated by the second and the day at the frequency and consequence of the ineptitudes of the team for which he works and drives. RB21 Gerhard Berger settings straight into the wall out of the pit. John, it's chaos though, this. Too generous as always. It is nonsense. You can't believe you're watching it and you'd be forgiven for thinking this is a vastly different team, a completely different team from the team that built and operated the RB19 in a season that ended up being the most dominant, the car being the most dominant in an F1 season that we've ever seen. What's happened? Well, I'll tell you what's happened. Wheatley's left. That's what's happened. Now Sauber are doing one of these, soon to become Audi. Jonathan Wheatley gave an interview and he said, listen, there's lots of low-hanging fruit. There's not anything in particular they've taken away from Red Bull. Just a new way of working. That's it. Operational excellence. That's Jonathan Wheatley. That's what you lose from Red Bull and what Audi have gained. So too, the same story around Rob Marshall. The last of the wing benders. Do you know what I mean? Flexi wing. The McLaren MCL39 would not be what it is. God tier aerodynamic efficiency. Sans Rob Marshall. So too Adrian Newey. Even Aston Martin look bloody quick. Candidate. Do you know what I mean? All of a sudden, Aston Martin look fast. What are we doing? And I get the circumstance of the track even suits their car, but do not bet for a second that Adrian Newey won't be looking per Fernando Alonso to bring something very serious to the 2026 grid. And this is where it gets techie. Maximilian Verstappen's got to be looking. He's going to stay till next year, of course. 12 months or 16 months he's promised Red Bull at the very least. But do not think for a second that on the back of all these instances, he won't be purveying the circumstance. If Red Bull don't build themselves a rocket ship, a Red Bull Ford powertrain powered rocket ship, bet your bottom dollar that Maximilian Verstappen will be looking around. He has to be. He has to be. Why would he not be? Already East in FP2, Hungary 24, welcome. But it feels a lot like, Issa, you raised a pertinent point. F1 history doesn't rhyme, but it does repeat sometimes. This was exactly the same last year when Max lost his mind. Right, remember him telling GP, I'm just trying to save this rubbish. And he didn't say rubbish. This rubbish strategy that you guys have put me in, crashing with Sir Lewis. It was a chaos of a circumstance because the Red Bull doesn't historically go well around the low and medium speed turns, 14 of them that the Hungaroring epitomises. This is the natural habitat of the McLarens. But what's going to happen with them? Max is going to sit it out if this continues. Sabbatical settings. Nostradamus has said the sabbatical word on a couple different occasions, hasn't he? John? Sir John? Nostradamus tells you all you need to know. Maybe we want to take this seriously. Into the wall, just like MBS. No, you can't go into the wall. He'll want to win. Pierre Vacher still to lead the 2025 and 20. I hope not, Benzi. Hasn't he proved himself sufficiently incapable of doing what Adrian... The problem when you have Adrian Newey is that he's everything. In addition to being a god-tier aerodynamicist, he's a mechanic, he's a race engineer, he's a performance engineer, he's a driver. He understands everything. He can translate the feedback from a Max or from a Mika Hakkinen or from a Coulthard or from a Seb Vettel into meaningful, useful information. Who on that grid, on that pit wall, Sons and Adrian Newey can do what he does, can take a step back and see the F1 wood for the F1 trees and fix a bloody car, troubleshoot for a very difficult automotive pugilistic equation that is the RB21? I will answer that question myself. No one. So that's why when Newey leaves that team, all the gubbins that they were talking about as operating in a way that's independent from Adrian Newey, not in silos, and we'll be able to behave yourself. You had no chance. You didn't understand the gradient of the hill up which you were going to need to climb as far as fixing for that car. The millisecond that Adrian Newey put down that pen, that Red Bull pen, that car did one of these. Now, people want to talk about the inertia valve, etc. But if it's Occam's razor, and I think it is one of these, you can attribute most of the foibles of the aerodynamic and mechanical variety as far as the RB21 is concerned to Adrian Newey leaving. Maybe not them arising in the first circumstance. We know that the gearbox is nice and tightly wound per Adrian Newey's design philosophy. Ergo, if you're going to do anything to the rear suspension as far as tinkering, as far as setup changes, then you will need to rebuild the gearbox entirely. That's Adrian Newey's signature, and that's not ideal, but yet and still they've had a bloody off-season entire to make changes. And Maximilian Verstappen still like, hang on, this car doesn't work. It understeers at the apex and snap oversteer on combined exits. What are we doing here? It's not acceptable. It's not good enough. And I tell you what's worse, chat. This is why it's really important. And this is why you see your boy go scorched earth. I want to see myself a proper season. I want to see myself a levelling of the competitive landscape. Because why? Because I remember being at grammar school and nobody talked about F1 because nobody was watching it then. You understand? I feel like we're very near to that circumstance yet and still. Not quite there, but close. If this ensues, what Oscar and Lando exchange in race victory, nobody wants to see that, chat, and therein lies a problem. You start to unwind all the good work as far as increasing intention dollars that the F1 movie has done. 500 million at the box office. Apple TV set to take the TV rights in North America, 150 million US dollars every single year. You set to unwind the good work that Drive to Survive has done as well. Brilliant work. 40% of F1 viewers as at August 2025 are women. Since when? Early in the 90s, there were no women shy of the wives of F1 drivers and girlfriends that watched Formula One. It just didn't happen. So it's brilliant. But again, the risk is that we're about to go for a low point, a trough as far as accruing attention dollars in the weird and wacky world that is the one that F's. Also, let me touch on this quickly. The RB21 on board looks like kids in karting with all scrap. It's chaos, Sir John. B. Menden, if you don't like the results from today, wait until tomorrow and they will change. Go on then, B. Menden. You make a point, and that's a god tier point that I need to capture and speak to. The Red Bull always tend to do this again. If past these prologue F1 history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. Red Bull season to date do one of these ambitious setups. They want to see the parameters within which they can work. So they go extreme in FP1 and FP2, and then all of a sudden in FP3 dial it back, and then Maximilian Verstappen is challenging for maybe not front row, but second row at the very least. But yeah, and still, I mean, you forgive me. You will forgive me for feeling like I'm dying inside as far as my love for Formula One. Is this what we're going to get for another bloody 10, 11 races? What, McLaren boys, the two of them very stoic and friendly. Well, apparently not, because those two are going to start to crash into each other. As aforementioned, it will get techier than techie things. Let me tell you this as well, by the way. Drugovich, Castaway for Fernando Alonso. What are we doing here? Again, this is a point to F1. You have Hungry Lions just waiting in the wings. Drogovic, Teo Porcher won't get another seat back, but he's a former F2 driver. F2 was meant to be the proving ground for young potential hot prospects. No, young hungry lions. Teo Porcher will never get another look in. I understand that not all F2 winners are created equal, but some are created more equal than I understand that. I get it. And Teo Porcher took a couple of years, etc. So too with Drogovic. You want ideally your F2 winners to win on their debut. Mention no names: Charles Leclerc, George Russell, et al. I get it. Lewis Hamilton. I get it. I understand it. But yet and still, you mean to tell me that Fernando Alonso can't just pass up one race weekend? One. Not even one. And give that to Drogo. Let him see how he gets on. Let him rub shoulders and wheels with Lance Stroll and the rest of the grid. Surely, what are we doing here? Makes me sad. I just feel like we keep making missteps at the moment. This is a sadness that I have to point at Formula One for the way it's conducting its activities. So Baxter, what are you doing, Jack? It's techie. Baxter, you'll have to forgive me, sir. I've just gone scorched earth for about 30 minutes now. And I just can't. I just can't. I'm angry, disappointed with Formula One. What, Drogo just sits on the sidelines, just as was OJ Piastri. What are we doing here? This is nonsense. His career's passing him by. There is an opportunity cost of leaving Felipe Drogovic on the sideline, a promising talent, while Fernando Alonso milks the dying embers of his career. What are we doing? Alonso looked good despite his bad back. He's a wily fighter. Nobody's going to tell me that Fernando Alonso isn't a good driver. He's a brilliant driver, 2-time champion, Michael Schuh, 06, 05. Get it, 100% get it. But Drogo, has he even driven a bloody F1? Listen, it's too much. It is too much. I don't like it. John Perry, you're an absolute legend as always, sir. I honestly believe teams had not put a ton into 2025. Sans Papaya R&D was almost entirely on 2026. So you make a good point. And Andrea Stella in the team principals press conference said words to those effect, that he wanted to make sure that the extent that the gap between McLaren and the rest was sufficiently substantial. They didn't want the close races of last year, and that's why they went extreme with the anti-dive and anti-squat suspension. Of course, they went hard. They went 10 toes down in 2025 because they understand that a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Let's win ourselves our constructors and our drivers this year. But bloody Nora, why can't you? I'm not blaming McLaren for their dominance. That they've done what they're supposed to do. They've done what they're supposed to do, and now Ferrari and the rest and Red Bull and bloody Mercedes start to focus on 2026, and we get half a season worth of Lando and Oscar exchanging victories. What do we do? Sad. I don't think it's acceptable. I think the rest of those teams need to be ashamed in themselves, especially Red Bull with a Maximilian Verstappen, 4-time world champion in the car, and Tsunoda's beat. What's going on here, chat? I can't. I'm allergic to this brand of F1. Hopefully Oscar and Lando start to come together and it gets a bit techie. Hopefully it's more 1989 as far as McLaren than it's 1988. Hopefully. But I don't know. Sometimes you don't want to hold your breath, It gets techie. Than techie things. Benzi says, Williams at least was truthful about this. Not sure if anyone other than Ferrari and Red Bull are doing it. So I think Red Bull have bought upgrades of the floor variety to Hungaro ring. Ferrari, though, on the back of the last Grand Prix, said that they were going to start to diversify their portfolio. That Lewis has started sending emails imploring Scuderia Ferrari, the red car with the yellow badge and black prancing horse atop, to focus on 2026. Where are they going? McLaren have more than 100 points. More than 100% of the points tally of Ferrari. It's more than double. Unacceptable. That's why when people are talking about Frederick Vasseur deserved the car, I'm like, hang on. Did he deserve a contract really? If results is a thing, if we're having this conversation under the umbrella heading of what have you done for me lately, yeah, Fred Vasseur definitely deserved a contract. Right? Changed 99% of the components of the car and still the SF25 is nowhere to be seen. Red Bull looked like a Baxter, we killed it already, mate. I don't even understand how. I don't get it. I genuinely don't understand how that Red Bull is such a dog. Now, maybe they sort out the setup between now and FP3, as they have done a multitude of times season to date, but maybe it's just a dog of a car. Red Bull it looks like it's nowhere, Safa. Oh, the humanity. I'm done. I'm finished. I'm fuming. I'm vexed. I'm fuming. I've had it up to here. It's chaos. Like I don't know. There's a lot to be optimistic about as far as Formula One. I don't like to end things on a sour note. Of course, we have ourselves a championship. We're in the middle of it. We're post a mini break. The Hungaroring is this weekend. But yet and still, just want to see more competition, more teams capable of winning championships and races, therefore, than just the papaya-coloured team. It will get techier than techie things between Oscar and Lando at some point. I don't even think they like each other, despite the Shakespearean level of false seeming currently on display. That will come to the fore, if it didn't already come to the fore, in FP2 by dint of Lando Norris's cheeky hand. What are you doing, Oscar? What are you doing, chap? Why are we coming so close together in FP2? Notwithstanding Andrea Stella saying that their relationship is only getting rosier. False. Fake news. Calling Andrea Stella out. It's only a matter of time between now and when those two come together. When, ladies and gentlemen, and not if. Listen, I'll be back 30 minutes before FP3 tomorrow, and then qualifying, same story. T minus 30 minutes. Race, the same thing. It's going to get techier than techie things. I have no doubt, by dint of Lando Norris's performance in absolute terms, his out and out speed, point A to point B, that he can put it on pole. But the big question that we're going to get an answer to over the next 48 hours is whether he can consolidate for a pole position. Lest we forget, in 2024, 10 times he put it on pole. 7 of those he failed to cross the line, having consolidated for his first place. Hungaroring is very different to Spa-Francorchamps, but yet and still, there are questions for which Lando Norris 1.0 will need to answer. It is therefore Lando Norris, aka Dustin from Stranger Things. It is your move, sir.